So that's a segue into, before I get going on the topic of the day, which the topic of the day is this paradox of the fact that artificial intelligence and humans have a lot to learn about each other. We have a lot to learn about each other still, and so we'll get into that in a minute. But I'll tell you that in this area here, and I'm going to ask each of you to help out. By the way, I'm going to put you to work, Alana. Mm-hmm. Start this off, pass these cards around. If we don't have enough, we're going to have to perform the miracle of the loaves and the fishes on Good Friday.
Do you mind if we record this?
No, not at all.
Is anybody opposed to it? Okay, thank you.
So, you missed all the good stuff already, so I hope it was already being recorded. So it's downhill from here. So in any event, we are at the law school because, in a significant part of the support and the preparation, we're going gangbusters. And we are already providing Jacksonville with a law school like none other. And we are in the forefront of legal education, and we're determined to return the investment that our students and their families are putting in gaining their legal education, and returning the investment in the community and the support, not only the money that that the city, it's very unusual to have this kind of, like, city council voted money for a private institution, but it's really a very shrewd, I believe, investment in the future, in providing sort of a missing link to the rapid development to have the legal infrastructure bolstered by providing the very best kind of entry-level people that want to live and work in Jacksonville and serve the community. So we're very determined not just to be another law school, but to be in the vanguard, to be the very best, meeting the very new and special needs that your practitioners need at this moment, that your clients, the community, and both in the public and the private aspects of law. So, and I know we're already doing that. But I need your help, and so that's why I'm starting with this. I need your help. We are going gangbusters. We're going to be very, very rigorous. We're getting a tremendous number of applications. But every person around this table, including Dylan, know people who would be a good lawyer. And I would just like you to help me find highly qualified people who are dedicated, who would find appealing joining our law school and learning how to use the most powerful tool ever devised by humans, and that's a legally trained mind. And I guarantee and you know somebody who's a paralegal, somebody might want to return to the workforce. Tomorrow I'm talking with somebody who's in his 50s, who's an ex-military person. He's a business guy. He is going to really contribute. I guarantee he's going to do great in law school, and he's going to contribute in that class. I don't want an entire law school of 55-year-olds, but he's going to get a lot, and he's going to give a lot. So if you know good people, just have them contact me, and we'll put them in the right hands. And I can't promise they'll be admitted, because we're only admitting people who we are really confident are able to excel in law school. And all of our initial small class, they are all excelling in ways that are almost hard to imagine. Everybody who sees them in operation, including the two chief judges in Jacksonville, the federal and state court, Mahan and Corrigan, and the Chief Justice of Florida, who visited us last fall, he was blown away, Muniz. They're fantastic, but I will guarantee that they will get very, very careful consideration and coaching. I'll give you a specific example. I met with an incredible woman yesterday who has gone through quite a bit, but she has, despite a really tough background, she's a current teacher, pre-law, at a major university around here. She has a PhD, she's teaching pre-law. She's got 2 masters, an undergraduate degree, and she works in the justice system, advising people who are re-entering from prison and so on. She's just terrific. However, she can't get past the 130 130s in the LSAT, and she's been, some people just have that issue. I kind of understand. So we're supporting her, but I spent a long time with her, not out of charity, but out of self-interest and out of concern in her own interest. And so we're not only supporting that, but I was very, very realistic with her in explaining that we not only, we know how to make good bets on people, so we look at their qualifications holistically, We don't just go rigidly, but we also, I feel, a heavy burden not only provide immediately. Our students are not guinea pigs. They are already getting, I can tell you why, but I won't, the best education, as good as any place in the country, if not better. We're already doing that, but we have to make sure that everybody can excel in law school, complete, graduate, pass the Florida bar exam, and then begin their careers with worthwhile jobs that make us all proud, as we know our students. So, and then we not only have to do that, but we have to do that with people that the more traditional, if quoted, I'm going to deny, we can delete this from the recording, I really don't care. Our ABA overlords who we're accelerating to have come in and give us accreditation, they're more and more traditional, and they are more rigid than we are. So we have to have them, while they're reviewing us for accreditation, be comfortable that we're making good choices. And their standards are a little bit different than ours, and they're less flexible. So I was very realistic with this very impressive, not so young woman. But in addition to providing her support with her application, I was just talking to her. I want to stay in touch with you over time. The work is very important. There's things we can do together. So this is not a one-off meeting, and that's the kind of engagement you'll have with anybody you send our way, no matter whatever happens with them. And I told her also a couple of stories of people I know personally, Marla knows who I'm referring to, who took 2, 3, 4 times to get into law school, and one of those people has been chosen by the Puerto Rico bar as the lawyer of New York City, best lawyer, serving the district attorney. I guarantee he's going to be a mayor of New York in 20 years. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But if you can send us people and ask other people to think of us, and Dylan, if you have a friend you think would be good as a lawyer, we'll help them figure that out. But I'd love to show off our law school and show everything off. Okay, well, Doug's heard me say this before, but I gave up bragging for Lent. It's not going so well, but I'll move on. Okay, so I talk about this paradox, and the fact is that the legal profession is changing dramatically, and it's going to continue to change, and it will be changing and accelerating the changes, and so we all should get ready for that. And part of it, and large part of it, is technology. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to read to you something that was written by a very good lawyer, Thomas Jefferson, in 1816. And he wrote, "Laws and institutions must go hand in hand with the progress of the human mind. As that becomes more developed, more enlightened, as new discoveries are made, as new truths discovered, and manners and opinions change, with the change of circumstances, institutions must advance and also must keep pace with the times. We might as well require a man to wear still the coat which fitted him as a boy as to require a civilized society to remain ever under the regime of their barbarous ancestors." So that guy could write. Part of those words are inscribed in the Jefferson Memorial in the tidal basin, and so some of you might be familiar with that quote. So the thing is that the explosion of chat bots is emblematic of the accelerating speed of technological change, and this particular invention, which was only introduced by that company AI1, was introduced in November, and you've just seen the explosion of interest and concern and so on. What is artificial intelligence? First of all, artificial intelligence is oxymoron. It's not artificial, it's real, it's created by humans. It's something that we created, so it's very real. On the other hand, it's not intelligence. It's not human intelligence. It imitates. It makes you think it's human intelligence. And so what is it? Well, the chat part of it, Chat GPT is the one that you've heard about, stands for, this is a very obscure, generative pre-trained technology. And that obscure reference, transformer, I'm sorry, generative pre-trained transformer. That kind of geeky phrase, which doesn't tell you too much, it's basically algorithms which are a tool for writing prose that the requester, the human, requests. And what these AI type of algorithmic automated systems do is they try to anticipate and predict what you, in this case, would want to write. And so bot stands for robot. So it's one of the robotic applications of algorithmic systems which are supposed to feign intelligence. So you can ask it, write me a review of Fogo de Chao, and you get something back. And then you look at it, or more relevant, you say, write me a motion to dismiss for 34 articles of indictment that were brought against former President Donald Trump. And you'll get something back. And by the way, lawyers are already doing this, right? They're already doing this. Now, what you get back is imperfect. GPT 3, now 4, that's been released, Chat GPT 3 and 4, it was launched in the developmental stage. It's imperfect. It's going to get a lot better, but it's always imperfect. And so it's a great tool, but it's imperfect. It is designed, these things are designed, and they do best things that are very large, time-consuming, and repetitive. So they're great for document discovery. They're great for drafting initial drafts of certain kinds of forms and contracts and things. But the longer, at least at this stage now, the more mistakes they are, and they're also apt to be very derivative. They have this huge database that they rely on, and they can regurgitate stuff that they think is replying, but it could be verbatim. So you got to be careful if you're submitting something whether it's actually plagiarizing. But the whole idea is it's not a tool, it's not a replacement for human thought. And the fact of the matter is that the horse is out of the barn, right? This is not going back anywhere. So if I had to give, and at the end I'm going to summarize, I hope, because I'm probably, and please, Alana, see, I can't, he's too far away to hit me, but kick me under the table when it's time. And by the way, anybody jump in with a question or a comment at any point.
So 20 minutes.
Okay, well, I hope I won't even go that long. So it's a tool, and the reaction has been explosive about this particular. However, I will tell you, the reaction to it and the issues that are raised are so familiar throughout the history of humankind. Every time a new technology is introduced, everybody's alarmed, about the pluses and the minuses and the dangers. And so it's just very historic. So what's going to happen, because it's out of the door, is that those businesses, those lawyers, those educators who lean in and figure out how to use this are going to have a competitive advantage, because there's huge efficiencies, there's huge benefits, and also they're going to figure out, because undeniably there's huge risks and downsides and dangers, like any technology. You can hit your thumb with a hammer. Last time I checked, we drive around on wheels. Well, wheels can run over you, but it's also the way we get around. So you have to be figuring these things out. And so those that lean in and figure it out, those that are not the kind of people, when you see so many of them who try to ignore it or oppose it or delay, they're going to be at a disadvantage. But that's easier said than done, because throughout history we've seen the same kind of action. I've got an article that I just got today that appears in the Chronicle of Higher Education about the advantages of being a Luddite. You know, those are people that a Luddite is somebody from. It was a community in England where people opposed the introduction of mechanical looms to replace humans weaving fabric, right? So the Luddites, that name now has been applied to anybody who automatically, reflexively tries to resist and oppose technological change. But this is in terms of education and law. Socrates vigorously opposed his students using pen and paper because he thought it was cheating and it wasn't really real education. It interfered with the teacher. They weren't really using their brain and it's to remember things and to communicate. And he also thought there were privacy issues and there could be abuse, all sorts of problems. All right? If you want a sort of compendium, I sort of collect these over the decades of similar examples. There's a wonderful book written by Tom Standage. It's a paperback. The title is The Victorian Internet. And it really focuses about the introduction of the telegraph. Now think about this. The telephone was just an extension, really, of the telegraph. The first electronic communication was the telegraph. And they thought the world might end when they sent that first message. And they had no idea what to expect. And it was the first time that humans were able to communicate over greater distances, by sound or by message, rather than signal flags on hilltops. By the way, that's where telegraph comes from. It means distance writer. And so those original telegraph stations around the world were like signaling stations on hilltops. So the first telegraph message, the message was, "What hath God wrought?" That's pretty, I think that it kind of sums it up. They really thought this was something very special. And the first people to take advantage of it were criminals in the United States, people from Baltimore, where the racetracks in Baltimore. They were getting advance information and placing their bets in Washington about what happened and winning and ripping off everybody. Bank fraud. It was used for, can you spell, Dylan? Oh, I can't do it that way then.
Sometimes, so I cannot spell some things.
Well, I'm not going to risk it. So I am a pretty bright guy. You already pulled the wool over my eyes once today, so I'm not going to risk it. You're so smart. So I'm just going to say that it was used for inappropriate relationships between consenting adults and sometimes not so consenting adults. The messaging, those were some of the earliest messages, but we still had the telegraph, right? Now, just a few years later, when the first telephone message, just shows you how quickly communications advances. You know what Alexander Graham Bell's message was on the first telephone message to Watson. It was like, "Watson, come here, I need you." That's like Neil Armstrong saying, "Wow, that was a doozy." It was just so much space travel and everything else. Okay, so Marla says that if I ever had an autobiography, the topic would be I digress, but this is such a rich and fascinating area. What I'm trying to say is relax. We've been through this before. It's not the end of the world. And distrust both the enormous hype, especially that coming out of Silicon Valley by the people who make this stuff, and the enormous concern who say, we got to get rid of it, we got to oppose it, and the article in the Chronicle of Higher Education, which I've got somewhere here, is all about the advantages of being a Luddite with respect to artificial intelligence and ChatGPT. Now, lawyers and law schools are notoriously late adapters. Educators are late adapters for many reasons, but lawyers and law schools are notoriously late adapters, and for very good reasons. And you're going to know this. You're going to say you resemble some of these comments, I hope. So we're late adapters because we value the importance of evidence. So we like to weigh evidence as to the value and usefulness before a change. We like give and take discussion and argument, if you will, to sharpen our understanding of what's true and what's not true. That takes time. Also, we appreciate that when you make a change, we like precedent. We value precedent, and we understand that when you make a change or you change precedent, there can be disruption, that there can be disadvantages. What about the people who relied on the old system? Or how about the people who can't afford the new technology? We had this whole concept when the internet began to take over the digital divide between the information haves and have-nots. So these are good reasons. However, we got to get over it. It's time to step up and lean in, and it is all of our professional responsibility. It is our job to figure this stuff out and use it. As, by the way, I will tell you, and this is why we're so able, because we have Jacksonville practitioners coming in every week, talking to our students in everything. We're not waiting to the end to do some of these things and add them on. We're infusing learning the new requirement techniques, the professionalism requirements, the requirements of civility and ethics and so on. We're building this in everything that our students are getting, but also on the technological side. So folks are going to lean in. Now, I'm about ready, I think, because I enjoy this so much. Not that I enjoy myself speaking, but I've been accused of that, but I enjoy the subject so much. It's hard. It's really nice when I hear some new material and she gets a little chuckle. That's pretty good. But I just want to share with you something else. Am I impeding can I help you with anything? Or?
No, I just want to make sure everybody's good as far as
Okay. Okay, we'll have the martinis later. So these are tools to learn how to use. So for example, if you ask somebody to draft a routine response in a certain kind of action or a contract or something, the lawyers are going to have to look at it and customize it and improve it and check it. But it sure can make it a lot easier, especially because a lot of the pro forma mumbo jumbo that we have, you can get that out of the way, but you got to check it to make sure it's not wrong. And also, I recently, before the current unpleasantness, I was very involved with the board of the St. Petersburg International Legal Forum, and in St. Petersburg, Russia, not Florida. And their aspiration was very ambitious. It was to be what Davos is for finance, for law. And they were assembling, and it was, by the way, done by patriots who believed. They were very realistic. They were staying away from human rights and those kind of issues and political issues, and they were focusing on commercial issues. So they had this big conference. They had people from 6 continents. You can figure out which one wasn't represented there. And 8,000 lawyers, judges, practitioners, academics, everything was great. So we're in this huge amphitheater, and they asked me to kick it off, be the keynote speaker. But this 4-day conference in St. Petersburg was about, will robots replace lawyers, right? So I gave my talk. My conclusion was very optimistic. It was a very dreary, people were really white-knuckling it, but I sort of said, look, and I gave them these predictions. There'll be more, in 30 years, there's going to be more lawyers, and some of their clients are going to be robots, and be fighting for their civil rights. I gave them all these big pictures. So I gave this thing, and so I get up, and on the stage with me in this huge amphitheater was Medvedev. He was then the president. So Medvedev was there. He speaks perfect English, and he was a professor at the University of St. Petersburg, 450 years old. And so he got up and he said, by the way, this is terrible, you have to forgive me because Oprah has told me to stop name dropping. But so anyway, Medvedev gets up there, I couldn't help myself, and he says, I have to say, I agree with almost everything that Dean Allard, who was the dean of Brooklyn Law School, has said. And I want to thank him for convincing me that robots will never replace human lawyers, because I can't imagine a robot talking as much as him. Now you can look that up on tape. That was recorded, and I took it as a compliment, and I got out of there. So that was good. Okay, but to that point, and this is what I'm going to try to wrap up on. I'll read some of these to you because I think when I say these, I think you'll be inclined to think about it and possibly agree with me. Is we are going to be the bosses of the technology, not vice versa. The technology will learn how it will serve us. Just like I remember when calculators were introduced in school, a lot of teachers thought it was cheating. You know, you weren't going to use your brain, right? Remember? And even today, the Gen Z and whatever, the millennia and Gen Z or whatever it is it Gen, what are the new kids called? What's his generation?
Well, I don't think they've named him yet. But I remember my teachers in the 90s saying, well, you're not always going to have a calculator with you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so and now in many classrooms for the Gen Z folks and the millennia, and boy, they're mystifying. I mean, they buy jeans that are already ripped. I mean, come on. What's that? They have paid people to rip them for them. They take pictures of their food. What's that all about, right? But you got to hand it to one thing. They all want to make a positive difference. But the professor runs. There are professors. They find classrooms where they don't allow them to have their laptops open because the professors don't want to adapt, or they're concerned they're playing, you know, bingo or something, you know, Final Four bingo while they're behind. So anyway, you don't have to worry about robots or algorithms replacing humans, because I believe flesh and blood writers in the end are irreplaceable because of humanity's artful penchant for understanding, wisdom, judgment, purpose, abstraction, creativity, poetry, metaphor. They can't do metaphor. Think about that. Unpredictability, love, friendship, compassion, empathy, joy, inspiration, complacency, negligence, stubbornness, irrationality, right, Mark? Decent, meanness, bias, hatred, deviance, antisocial behavior, illness, death, and of course, faith, hope, and charity. And our desires for relationships, privacy, and freedom, these are the wondrous foibles that really make us more like Captain Kirk than Spock. And it's always going to be the case. So I think we can have some confidence and lean in. Now, I will flag something that is very much on my end, and then I will conclude, that is very much on my mind, that I think we all need to have a responsibility to pay attention to. And it's creepy. The combination of AI and virtual reality makes the AI, can make it sound like it's real, like it's a real person, whether the photographs look real, or the immersive experience, or like the movie Her, where this fella is like becoming enamored with his computer programmer, basically, like his version of Alexi. There are algorithms right now that have voice conversations and become the pals of highly malleable people, largely, often young people, but not exclusively so, and who are at risk. They may be lonely, they may be troubled, and they get caught up, and the machine is programmed to do this, and it's awful. We should get law enforcement and vigilant, but it's to get people to do things they shouldn't do, to hurt themselves or to hurt others, to do very unwise things. Recently, there's stories about people posing as young underage girls being encouraged, you know, to do things that they shouldn't do with other people. And so I think we all need to be aware and sensitive and keep an eye out, and we should encourage our lawmakers and others to kind of be vigilant. But we cannot rely on Congress and the courts. They're always way behind. They're so far behind in the United States Congress on this stuff that, and then, you know, that process is so slow. And, you know, this may be a shocker to all of you, but that system is actually not particularly productive right now in terms of addressing the biggest issues that we all have and share and can agree on. And so it's up to all of us, really, to step up and help out and stay on top of this stuff. So I didn't want to end on such a dark note. I'm very, very optimistic, but I think together we can help protect society from the downside of weapons. And this has always been the case. You know, TNT was not developed for warfare. You know, it was developed for other purposes. You know, the atomic energy was invented for other purposes other than, you know, mass destruction, although, and you can have a pretty good argument, and it's one that rages to this day, about whether the use by the United States, you know, saved lives and made the world better. So it's not an easy subject, but it's one that lawyers are trained to do and make a positive difference in. So I thank you. You've been very polite and tolerant. I hope, You know, I think Doug's heard me say this before too, but my job was to talk, yours was to listen. I hope we finished our work at the same time. Any questions? You have time for questions?
We got 3 minutes. Any questions?
Are you familiar with the diversified and distributed, the 3D printed guns and
Yeah.
the litigation regarding whether or not those files can be put out on the internet? And of course, there's some interstate battles where the Attorney General of New Jersey is trying to tell Texas companies what they can or can't do in Texas. How do you see that incorporating, or does that track with your idea that Congress can't possibly keep up with what the regulations are as technology moves?
First of all, Congress's track record on responding to gun issues is not exactly an example of alacrity. So I don't think Congress will be in a position really to address that. I mean, I'm familiar with that issue.
Yeah.
I'll just ask you, because this is your field, it's not my field, that's your field. What do you think is the likely future of it?
Well, I mean, I was hoping to get a technology person's take, because I mean, I don't know how you stop the spread of information. That is part of what this Chat GPT is about. It's about the transmission of information, and that's the argument that the manufacturer has defended it on is, we're not transmitting a firearm, we're not transmitting a gun, we're not transmitting a weapon, we're transmitting information and knowledge, and what somebody does with that information and knowledge is the ultimate answer to the problem. The young man that developed it's not even a fan of guns necessarily. He's more of an anarchist philosophy type person, and that was his point behind developing it, was to prove a point as much as it was to do anything with it. That's why he didn't seek to profit from it in the first place.
So I'm going to give you an answer about how
Please.
I feel about what my prediction is, but it's going to shock you because, you know, my background is, even though it's from the dark Middle Ages, you know, where there wasn't this partisan divide, where after elections people worked together for common national interest. So I'm dated, but you know, I was Pat Moynihan's, Senator Moynihan's chief of staff, Senator Kennedy's Judiciary and Health Committee counsel, worked with Al Gore when I was with him when he invented the internet. You know, I helped write that speech, which is another funny story. So you know my background, and Marla's also had on that same side of the aisle, major leadership. I won't say her name, but she was very early staff in California when I was clerking out there with Nancy Pelosi, but I won't say her name, that's the initials. So anyway, you know where I'm coming from. I agree with you, and here's why. You can't and shouldn't stop, you can anyway, the flow of information. So it's the use that needs to be addressed and what the rules should be. Now, the 3D printer stuff is a very serious issue. I don't think traditional gun manufacturers are too thrilled with it either, probably, right?
I wouldn't know. That's not my side of the situation.
Okay, but I think it's an issue, and there's also security issues because they pass through security because of the content and everything else. But it's very hard to pass a rule that would restrain that, but not the other really terrific uses of 3D printing, which can be transformational for the world and not to mention climate friendly. So I think it's very difficult at this stage to pose a rule that would constrain that. And on the other side, there's other issues and ways to address, the gun problem than that. I don't think that most of the people who, I could be, Mrs. Allard, my mother, did not bring up naive people, but I don't believe that the people that are creating most of this mayhem, and that's what it is, I don't think that they're likely to be the folks that can acquire that information and assemble a 3D printed, created weapon. Now, also, our military is that is going to be the military of the future, is that you land in the printers and then on site with your initial Navy SEALs guarding it, you make all the equipment and everything that you need, all the weapons and everything, and then you don't have to ship it in and bring it over from long distances. So that's going to be the future, oversimplified. Hope that answers your question. Anybody?
One question with parts. ADA timing on accreditation. I know the existing size of the class. Future classes, where are you?
interviews.
Okay.
And number of professors.
We are very aggressive, okay. We're very aggressively seeking, because we have such a good story to tell, ABA accreditation. So we have requested, and I just had a meeting this morning, a site visit in October. We've only been open a year, right? And I've been in touch with the ABA constantly. So that we're going to be training the ABA review team about why we're special and wonderful over the summer. They'll visit us in October. They will set a report. If we have any deficiencies, which they find something, you know, like the dean talks too much or something, and so we'll address that. And then the Council on Legal Education and Admissions to the Bar will convene its council to review our application in April or May, and we will know whether we have provisional by 2024, spring. If we don't, we'll have to cure it, but we've got in some leeway. So my ambition is to get it done well in advance of our first students graduating. We have the Fab 14 now. We've just hit 14 new students out of 400 applications for the fall, so we're going to have at least another, but this cadre is, the first one is remarkable. They're remarkable. I would not trade, I honestly say this, I would not trade one of these students of ours, or one of them that we've gotten for a law student, anywhere else, any other law student. I would not trade them. Maybe one or two of them, and they know who they are, but not one of them.
Number of professors right now.
Right now, we have 6 full-time professors and 5 professors like me, I count because I teach, who are administrators that are not, so that's 11. And we are going to announce, this is the first group that is here, the 4 that we have just hired, so that when we have a second cadre, we can cover this. We're doing this, the ABA, people haven't done this before. Instead of building up the law school and burning millions of dollars for 3 years and then taking students, we're building it up brick by brick solidly, and so we've got enough, more than enough. 11 faculty, 14 students. I told my classmates in Yale, Stanford, Chicago, down in Miami, I said, hey, I know why you backed out of U.S. News Report. You heard we were coming and you were just nervous we're going to take over the top spot. By the traditional U.S. News rankings, we would be in so many categories, like #1 by far. So we're going to announce 4 new full-time faculties, 4 women. Each of them are from outside of Florida coming here, which is not a bad thing, you know, and they have ties to Florida, several of them, and they've been in Florida, they've been at UF, in other Florida schools, but they're teaching, and they're each of them in their own fields, they're leader in their fields. One of them is the leader in disasters, whether natural or human-made. Another one, she's the #1 leader in the world, and she does other things. I mean, she'll be teaching criminal law and other things like that. Another is one of the most sought-after legal research and writing instructors. Another is a phenomenal litigator, lawyer, professor who was currently teaching at Notre Dame, and she is, which is ironic, she's Orthodox Jewish, but she is a leading litigator against human trafficking, successful in the world. And who am I missing? Oh, and a specialist who will be providing academic support and bar readiness, bar exam readiness. You know, there's 15 plus law schools in Florida. Only 2 of them are above the danger zone. You know, if you are not have 75% of your students passing the bar, then the ABA can take away your accreditation after 2 years, right? There's only 2 above, and one of them is just barely above. And so I am determined that we're going to knock that out of the park. And I truly believe, you never know with a bar exam. I mean, you can have a bad day, stuff happens, life interferes, but, and by the way, I tell the students all the time, I tell them 2 things with respect to the bar exam. I'm going to answer your other question in a minute. the only thing worse than taking the bar exam is taking it twice, right? So get it over with. I happen to think bar exam, and I kind of have a reputation for this, is the dumbest thing in the world. There's so many better ways to get at competency and quality. It's just dumb, it's a waste of money, it's a bar to entry. And it's not a cute rite of passage. It's bad. We can do better, okay? But it's a necessary evil. We have to color within the lines here at this new College of Law of yours, and before we go completely Jacksonville Pollock, you know, so we have to do that. And so I kind of lost where I was going on it, but anyway, that's the bar exam, and we're going to, when we get provisional accreditation.
Who's the teacher?
Yeah.
The particular professor coming.
Oh yeah, the other correct. So that's her. That's her field as a specialist. That's why. Thank you. And so it's all good, and everything seems to be on track. Did I cover all the ground?
You did.
Probably more than you could bear, right? Too much. As my kids say, TMI. So.
That was fascinating. I know I learned a lot. Luddites, lawyers are Luddites, okay? And so you said that lawyers are late adopters, and so that's a Luddite. Robots will never replace lawyers. That's good to hear. And Nick Allard suggests that I not name drop so much, and so I'm adopting that. Nick Allard says I shouldn't name drop. So
I said Oprah told me not to name drop.
I was adding that in there too.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
And the final thing was, I'm noticing that along the same line, you're saying we need to take individual responsibility for how we handle. Don't wait for Congress. Don't wait for legislation. But we take individual responsibility on how we respond and react to the bots. And I'm noticing that every morning when I tell Siri to turn off my do not disturb and turn off my airplane mode, I then say thank you. And I know that she really can't hear me, but I still say it just because it's my individual responsibility.
Well, I'll correct you slightly on that.
Yes.
She can hear you, and in fact, they never turn it off. Even though you think it's a trigger when it hears your voice, it's always on. There's been cases where they use that as evidence. You know, there's a murder case in a hot tub where they had the Siri on, and it picked up what was really going on. The defendant, a guy, claimed that his girlfriend, who was held under water, was really, it was an accident that she drowned on her own or something, and they heard the whole thing.
They heard the whole thing.
Yeah, they got it, and it's subpoenable. So just a word to the wise,
Okay.
But on the other point that's very important, and I'm really incredibly flattered. Like, you were really paying attention, taking notes and stuff. This is great. You should go to law school. Anyway, I do want to.
Got law school available?
I want to make a very important point. What I'm talking about.
Yes.
I cringe when you hear lawmakers think it's cute to say, "Yeah, I don't get this stuff. I don't know it," or "It's not really my area. I don't know." That's not cute. And I was really upset when I heard Professor Kagan. Professor Kagan was right. Dean Kagan. They had 4 oral arguments this term involving algorithmic applications of artificial intelligence. 4 of them. 2 were about whether there should be liability despite the statutory immunity. Some of you know it's Section 230. Whether there should be immunity for harms that people have as a result of the algorithms that send people to dangerous information. And 2 of them are whether states like Florida's in it, Texas, can do just the opposite, which is stop people from taking down stuff that they regard, as politically motivated. And so in the context, she says, and gets a big laugh, she says, it's not like we're the 9 biggest experts in the internet. I'm paraphrasing only a little bit. That's not cute. It is our job as lawyers to figure it out. And by the way, it's our professional responsibility. It's in the code, state and federal civil procedure now, requirements for digital forensic investigations. You have to submit things digitally. You have to be able to, test. You have to be able to conduct discovery, understanding how corporations use algorithms to store and check the information, all of that. And the fact that they didn't find out who leaked that thing is baloney, right? That
You don't buy it either.
every law firm in Jacksonville knows how to do it and knows how to hire people. Now the thing is that a lot of law firms now don't have people yet, and so this is another thing that's going to put our students at a premium, because most law schools are not training people. They're saying, well, that's not the core traditional curriculum, get it later on, it's too cute, we can't figure it out. But Kagan is wrong, because precisely the role of the Supreme Court is when we don't have answers to new issues, doesn't have to be with technology. Their quintessential role is to figure out what the rules should be. And they've got all these bright people. I mean, they're not yet from Jacksonville University College of Law, but they got all these bright law clerks. You know, I mean, I don't think the institutions they got their degrees hand them out for free. You know, these guys can help them and gals figure it out. That's your job. So I don't think it's cute, but don't rely on them. And I think it's our responsibility. I mean, it's literally our responsibility, enforceable responsibility. But just as public citizens and in the honorable profession, where we not only have the opportunity to present private issues and to do well privately, we have public responsibilities, and this is one of them. And again, I'm flagging this issue. I think if you weren't aware of what I'm talking about, you'll start to hear maybe some of these disturbing, creepy stories about, I mean, it's hard to believe, but people fall for it, and they just, you know.
Thank you very much.
Send me good students.